Hello and welcome to a new episode of the PropSwap Podcast. We are your hosts, Ian Epstein
and Luke Pergande.
And we are also the founders of PropSwap, the first marketplace to buy and sell sports bets. Thank you so much for joining us this week. We have another great episode for you, and it will be our final one before taking a little break for the summer. But don't worry, we'll be back for football. But PropSwap founders need summer breaks as well from doing podcasts. But on this episode, we will get into the U.S. Open action. We will recap, obviously, the amazing Stanley Cup victory. But first, I thought we would start with NBA. Denver Nuggets win their first ever NBA championship. And they did so despite shooting 5 for 28 from three. And I think they were 1 for 17 at one point. So they were definitely playing tight and kind of wanted to give the game away, except that the Heat also, their role players they had the potential to score 20 or 0. Like, if Max Strus could score 20 and I believe you, and you could score 0 and I'd also believe you. And the other note, Jokic becomes the first player in NBA history to lead all players in points with 600, rebounds with 269, and assists 190 in a single postseason. So he led all players in all of those stats for the playoffs. So did you have any takeaways from the finals?
Yeah, Denver, the much better team. We put out a Jimmy Butler praise video after the series was 1-1, and obviously I don't believe in jinxes, but he did absolutely nothing. I am a big Jimmy Butler fan, but if LeBron had that performance, or Michael Jordan had that performance, or Kobe had that performance in an NBA Finals, they would be getting chastised, like absolutely shredded. And it may come out that he's injured. That's possible. We don't know yet. It just happened 48 hours ago. But from what the information we know, he played awful, and he deserves a lot of blame. I realize that he carried his team to get there, but when you're on when the lights are the brightest, you got to show up. And I did not think Jimmy Butler showed up in that NBA Finals. Denver's the better team, no matter what. No discredit to Denver, but Jimmy needs to do better.
Yeah, I mean, holding Jimmy to the standard that he set in like the Buck series might have been a little unrealistic, but I would agree that he definitely he did not step up in a major way, and they kind of really needed him to. If he had played better, this thing could have been going to Game 6 in Miami on Thursday. So, agree with all those points. So as we've talked about, I live in Denver, and so I did not go out to watch the game just because I actually like to watch the game, and I find sports bars not great places to watch games. But so after the game, I went to the downtown area to kind of join the madness. And on my way, I ran into Michael Wilbon and Mike Greenberg. So shout out to those guys, extremely nice. And we shared a connection over my hometown, Evanston, which is also home to Northwestern University, which they both went to. So talked to Evanston, was walking along with them and having a good conversation. And then I would say about a minute into it, some guy stops in his tracks and he was like, hey, you're the guy. It's the guy from the thing, and then like basically him and group like do a 180 to go back to start walking in the direction that they were walking in. Like one like pulls out their phone and is like just video recording them as they're trying to walk. And I was like, and kind of ruined the conversation. But for that minute, they were extremely nice. And so just want to give them a shout out on the podcast.
Did you guys talk about Mustard's last stand, or is that not part of the dialogue?
No, did not talk about Mustard's last stand. Talked about that I just moved here and actually started talking about as I used to live in Vegas. I worked for a sports book, and he was like, "Oh, which one?" Did Wilbon? He asked which one, and I told him, and then at that very moment was when the conversation dissolved. But
no props out plug. Didn't have time for it.
It was going to be the next. It was going to be the next words out of my mouth.
It happens.
Yeah. So that was super cool. And then the other thing that I've been thinking about since the Nuggets winning is the GM who put this team together, right? I mean, because the Nuggets have been kind of lauded for drafting the right players, right? They drafted Jokic and Murray and took a chance on Michael Porter Jr. and signed Aaron Gordon. It's not one of those, Miami Heat, Brooklyn Nets, type situations where they're just like, two superstars and then we'll just like fill in the rest. It was really kind of a homegrown team. But the GM who put this team together, his name's Tim Connolly. He left the Nuggets last year and took a job to become the president of basketball operations in Minnesota. The new owners, A-Rod and Mark Lowry, gave him a 5-year, $40 million contract. So definitely was well respected even before this. However, Tim Connolly might have executed one of the worst trades of the decade by trading 5 picks and 5 players for Rudy Gobert. So it's just a kind of interesting thing of like, clearly he's a smart, talented GM and to draft Jokic and they kept him over this other guy that like it was in the beginning of Jokic's career that was like they're kind of even, but very weird. Again, just kind of two sides of the coin.
Yeah, especially for a big man, it's pretty apparent that big men are going away in today's game. Like, and he's a decent shooter. He's no, not that Anthony Davis is a sharpshooter, but he can't shoot like Anthony Davis can. So interesting that they would do that. If it was like a guard or something, or like a swing man, like I could maybe see that. But that's interesting that of all the players to trade for, you trade for Rudy Gobert.
Yeah. And also when you already have Karl Anthony Towns, so it's like when has two big 2 7-footers on a team worked? Will be interesting. I'm sure there'll be a lot of news in the offseason with trades and free agency, as there always is with the NBA. Just one last note. Just want to alert everyone: NBA draft is next week. Will be another fun, exciting event on PropSwap. We've talked about the NFL draft. Probably won't be as crazy as NFL. I mean, NFL is king when it comes to this stuff, but after the first pick, which is, it's a lock to be Victor Wembanyama, but it should be pretty interesting after that, maybe some trades. So definitely be checking on PropSwap next week on draft tickets. And then also if there's, crazy odds movement, great chance to flip before the draft, if there's some news or rumor breaks.
For sure. Yeah. Nevada doesn't do a great job posting. I don't even know if it's legal in Nevada. I know the draft their Nevada sportsbooks are awful at hanging odds on. So we'll see if we can, I certainly have buddies in Illinois and of course New Jersey where I used to live. So we'll see if we can find some tickets I could post at like Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah. The Vegas sports books do not do well in terms of like offering wide menus and they know that are only going to lose on these types of things. So they've just stopped offering a lot of markets. But in other states like Colorado, it's a pretty wide market right now. Moving on, going to talk a little Stanley Cup final action. First off, both Luke and I are rocking our Vegas Golden Knights jerseys. Luke has a custom jersey with PropSwap on the back and the number 15 for 2015, the year we started the company.
Yes, sir. Super exciting. Very nice of my family to give it to me as a Christmas gift. And when I lived in Vegas, I would wear this thing all the time.
Yeah. So I guess we'll tell a little quick story. Luke and I, we bought season tickets to the Knights before they had a team name, before they had any players. Obviously it was 2017 at the time, or maybe even the year before that, 2016 maybe. And 16. We were, 2 broke entrepreneurs, and they were having an open house at T-Mobile Arena where you could walk around and there was like stickers on any open seat, open seats for season tickets. And so we had absolutely no intention to actually buy these tickets. We just wanted to check it out. And we find ourselves in the upper deck and there's these 2 seats with stickers on them for $40 a seat a game. So $80 total. And remember we sat in those chairs and we were like, this would be pretty cool. Like we might be able to, we should be able to, we should try to find a way to pull this off. And so we end up sending like text messages out to a couple other people being like, if we can get a third person in, split it 3 ways, like, we can make it work financially. two off the top of my head I know declined the offer. Right, I think at least two people that we texted and said no, and then we did find a third person who sight unseen said, "Yep, I'm in." Long story short, the first year we're going to the Stanley Cup final. We're making a decent amount of money on a secondary market for event tickets, it all worked out.
Yeah, I think people ask us what was the inspiration for PropSwap. Like, StubHub is definitely the number one company that I think we both admired, and it was a needed company. Our parents had used it, we had used it before starting PropSwap. It was just like an obvious business, and I think our admiration for that company led to this, because we're like, we'll obviously just sell them on StubHub if the team gets hot, or if we were out of town or something. It worked out. I think we each got to go to a game. I want to say, so I went to game one. I want to say I sold the seat next to me for $500 cash.
So you were nice enough to go with a stranger to game one, while me and our third partner, we both went to game two. Now, granted, game one of that series against the Capitals was the only one they won, and it's funny. So just to kind of bring this back to this year's game two that I went to in that 2017-18 season. There was I want to say it was Alex Tuck. I forget. It was like wide open net, and the goalie for the Capitals made this crazy save, reaching, basically on his back, reaching to block it. And it was kind of one of those, it's not your time moment. And the series just kind of was completely different after that. They lost 4 straight games. And it was, everyone kind of points to that one point in the game. To bring this full circle, game one against the Panthers, Aiden Hill had a very similar save in game one that ended up winning that game. And again, I was telling a buddy, the Knights, the Panthers might have outplayed the Knights for the first 17 minutes of the series, and then it was Knights from that the rest of the way.
Yeah. No, that's a good analogy. We've talked about this on the last episode, I believe. Puck bounces. They call it puck bounces in hockey, and it's really just randomness, and if you can
puck luck, right?
Sure, yeah, puck luck's the term for sure. And just if you can be on the right side of randomness, you got a shot. And I think Aiden Hill proved that he could get some of those puck bounces this postseason. And of course, the Kachuk injury, I think, helped the Vegas Golden Knights. And yeah, I mean, we said in this podcast that we both thought the Knights were the superior hockey team. The Panthers were hotter, quote unquote. That really doesn't mean anything. It just, although teams get hot, maybe I'll back off that. It does. There is such a thing as momentum in sports. But yeah, the Golden Knights are just a better roster, top to bottom.
Yeah. Their depth was their crazy. Their fourth line, plays extremely well, and when your fourth line is able to contribute and just give the other guys some rest, that's huge, right? To have that kind of depth on the team. So unlike the Nuggets, Vegas did not play tight in their game 5. I was a little nervous that that they would be nervous to win this cup in front of their fans and play tight, and that was not the case. Mark Stone scored a shorthanded goal 12 minutes into the game, and it was on from there. Vegas's 9 goals broke the record set by the Penguins in 1991 for most goals scored in a cup clinching game. So still unreal that they put up a 9 spot on them. And then just last thing, obviously, congrats to our friend John, which if you missed last week's podcast, definitely go check that out. John was the owner of a 3-leg parlay, $100 to win $74,000 on Argentina to win the World Cup, Nuggets to win the West, and the Knights to win the Stanley Cup. And so he, as he talked about, he was going to drive up to Circa in a McLaren, which he did. So, kudos to him. And I'm sure he's won extremely and a little richer now, gentlemen, in Las Vegas.
Super cool. Well, it's June 14th, and I think it's up for one of the best bets of the year. Like you said, $100 on the 74 grand. Like that's that is stuff that dreams are made of. So super happy that he's a friend of ours. Super happy that he's a customer on PropSwap. Super happy that he didn't sell it. You know, people always ask us like, are you happy or sad that tickets don't get sold? Like if it, you know, first of all, if people made money on the thing, of course I'm happy. Like I don't care how you make money, whether you're selling it on PropSwap or winning bets. Like doesn't matter to me. If customers and friends of ours and sports bettors are making money versus the house, great. The books make enough money, and Vegas keeps the lights on for a reason. So anytime a individual can make money, I'm ecstatic, and I couldn't be happier for him. It's one of the best bets of the year.
Yeah, I mean, look, we always say making money is the name of the game, right? I mean, that's why we do stake or swap, like, you know, talking about bets to get in, and then, you know, but the result should be making money, right? Now, I think me personally, and probably you as well, like, I don't know if I'd ever want to be in a position where it's either $74,000 or nothing, right? I've seen too many sports and watched too many crazy things happen to you know, to put myself in that position. But regardless, you know, as long as you make money, that's kind of all we care about. But on that point, I thought I would bring back this chart that we talked about a couple weeks ago in terms of long shots reaching the finals in the last 6 major sports over the last year. You know, and again, we always talk about I wouldn't, you can make a great pick, but it only counts if you actually make some money on it, right? So, so the 6 major sports, right? The 4 professional sports and the 2 college, you know, football and basketball. Philadelphia Phillies reached the World Series last year. They were as high as 75-1 to win the World Series, got as low as -150, and they lost to the Astros. TCU was a huge long shot entering the college football season, 250-1 before the season, got down to +350 before the Georgia game, and got absolutely routed in that game. They lost. The Eagles, 50-1 before they made the A.J. Brown trade, got down to -125 against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. They lost. San Diego State, as we all know, huge long shots to reach the championship, and then they got absolutely destroyed by UConn, and they were +290 before that game. So 150-1 to +290. And then most recently we have the Florida Panthers, who were 150-1 during the Bruins series, got down to +110 at one point to win the Stanley Cup. They lost. And then the Miami Heat were 240-1 when they lost the playing game to Atlanta, got down to as low as +220. I know we've talked about that a couple of times about swapping the Heat at +220. They lost. So that is literally in the last 6 major championships, all have examples of a long shot reaching the final and then losing. Once again, people would say like, "Oh yeah, that's kind of an anomaly." Well, here's the
No.
we're 6 for 6.
No, wrong. That's wrong. Yeah, the takeaway, the overall takeaway is bet long shots. That's the overall takeaway. And you know, like we talked about, like you could have sold the timing on that to sell your SDSU bet, for example, like waiting all the way to the championship takes incredible timing. So we're not saying that like here's what the average return is when you bet long shots. Like that's not fair, because with PropSwap you could sell it a week later after betting the future. But what is fair is saying bet long shots because these long shots get to the championship all the time. So give yourself some options. Please make 2 tickets. Have your mind on selling. We'll talk about the US Open in a few minutes here. Like buy a basket, buy some long shot teams, and then be ready to flip those as the season goes on, as the championship starts to solidify, because every single sports season, a long shot is going to the finals, or at least getting darn close, and you could have sold it for a ton of cash.
Yeah. Just would completely second on the multiple tickets thing, right? And I think we talked about this last time. We talked about the finalists or whatever. But yeah, I mean, buying five bets, right? 5 tickets, and then being able to sell throughout the season. The other thing too that kind of stands out to me is, besides TCU and the Eagles, all of those teams I mentioned and like their longest odds was at some point during the season. And in the case of the Panthers and the Heat, were during the playoffs too. So it also doesn't necessarily need to be a situation where it's, you have to get the team before the season. Obviously that was the case with like TCU at 250-1, but like, I think baseball is a great time right now where you can be looking at certain teams being like, yeah, okay, they had a rough first, 2 months, but like, this player's coming back from injury. Like they could turn it around. I always point to the home run leader prop, like those multiple cases over the last couple of years of guys, being 200-1 in July, and then coming and winning it. Salvador Perez of the Royals comes to mind a couple years ago. So definitely something to keep an eye out during the baseball season, and does not need to be something where you have to make the bet before the season. Speaking of baseball, just a quick little hitter, no pun intended, because baseball season is in full swing, and I know we've been talking a lot on the podcast about hockey and basketball, and we're going to talk some U.S. Open as well coming up. But I thought it would be, before we take a little time break, worth just talking about one interesting kind of story right now, which is the Arizona Diamondbacks. Right now in first place in the NL West. We had a customer who bet $94 at 52-1 odds on the Diamondbacks to win the NL West. They sold it last week for $525, which is odds of plus 860. And then the buyer now has it relisted for $1,100, and which is odds of plus 360 is what the buyer has it relisted for. D-backs are currently 41-26, 3 games ahead of the Dodgers, and they actually just ended a stretch where they won 15 of a 20-game stretch. And if they win the division, the ticket will collect $5,000. And so, as I pull up the NL West odds, I mean, the D-backs are plus 280 right now at MGM. And this buyer has it relisted for plus 360. So if you hear this and you think the D-backs can stay hot, then that's definitely a great ticket. So just one little news and note from the MLB world.
Yep. Yeah. It's been like, I watch the odds. People asking like, how do I treat baseball, up until the NBA finals and Stanley Cup are going on. Like, I follow the odds. So like, I'll pay attention to division races. I'll pay attention to like the futures odds. Like, there's been some movement, man. The Rangers are down to 13-1. Like, never thought that would be happening. Blue Jays have gotten cold a little bit. They're down to 19-1. Padres have gotten cold a little bit. They got down to 23-1. They of course added, Juan Soto and Bogarts from the Red Sox in the offseason. So some interesting storylines. Mets are ice cold. You mentioned the D-backs. Like, there's been some cool stories. So, I'm excited to see how June and July go for baseball futures. And like you said, individual statistics, like who will be the MLB home run leader, is super fun to bet on as well.
Yeah. They're not going to do anything with this season, but the A's, after having just an abysmal start, are have won seven of their last 10 games. So
yep.
Definitely lots of wild swings, right? They call it the dog days of summer, but there's definitely a lot of money to be made during the middle of the season, hopping on some of these teams. But speaking of dog days of summer, before we get to that, it is the U.S. Open, which we'll talk about coming up in Stake or Swap. First up, we will be talking about Xander Schauffele, currently 18-1 to win the U.S. Open. He has not won a major before, but I will go first and say I am staking Xander Schauffele at 18-1. He has 10 top 10 finishes in his 24 major starts. He ranks 4th in total strokes gained, 6th in approach to green, and 12th in putting. I mean, if you watch any amount of golf, this guy is just rock solid. He's always towards the top of the leaderboard. And then, for the PGA Championship, he did not have a great first 3 rounds, but he had a great Sunday where he shot 3 under and was able to finish in the top 20. So, he has that capability of putting it together when he needs to. And I like the momentum of him finishing strong, and I think he could carry that over into the U.S. Open in LA this week. So I am staking Xander Schauffele at 18-1.
Yeah, I like this kid usually. I'm gonna swap Schauffele at 18-1. Schauffele, until he wins a major, he is in my category of like swaps, like golfers that I would buy now on Wednesday or Thursday morning and then sell him throughout the weekend. And to me, like 18-1 just isn't enough value there where I could be getting 20 times my money on some other guys that we'll talk about. So I do like Xander. He's a California kid. We'll talk about some other California kids. He's from San Diego. Of course, the U.S. Open's in Los Angeles this weekend. So I do like his golf, but until he wins a major, I'm going to stay away from him.
Fair enough. So the next golfer that we're going to talk about is Collin Morikawa, currently 35-1 to win the U.S. Open. Luke, you can go first. Are you staking or swapping Morikawa?
Yeah, so I'm going to stake Collin Morikawa. His odds are 35-1. If you listen to me on ESPN Chicago or other radio stations throughout the country, you're probably sick of hearing about Collin Morikawa, but this guy just always is in the mix on most of the time Saturday and then some of the time on Sunday. And with this segment, I just want his odds to go down. So he's from Los Angeles, also went to Berkeley. I'm sure he's played the Los Angeles Country Club tons of times. And for those reasons, I think his odds will go down to like 7-1 on Saturday. And then I'd be making, 5 times my money. And if he can go down to 3-1, you'd be making at least 10 times your money. So some decent multipliers on Collin. I'll stake him at 35-1.
I am going to swap Morikawa. Now I do love him. I think he seems like awesome and would be a great hang based off the Netflix doc. But here are his most recent kind of finishes. He withdrew from the Memorial, tied 29th at the Charles Schwab, tied 26th before that, missed the cut before that, missed the cut before that, and then a tie for 31st. And the term before that was he was finished 10th at the Masters. So he did have a good Masters showing, but has not been playing great golf, it looks like. And I don't even I missed him withdrawing. I would want to double check that and make sure that wasn't an injury related thing. So for those reasons, I'm just not loving his most recent track record. And so I am swapping Morikawa because, they got to make the cut if to make a profit. And I guess we should say, golf is pretty much dominated right now by Scheffler, Brooks, and Rahm. But they're not going to probably run away with it. Like there's going to be someone up there with them, with one of those guys, I would say.
Yeah, so I texted my two golf absolute fanatic buddies who watch this stuff every weekend. They said approach shot is super important. The LA Country Club has really large greens, so your iron game is super relevant because you're going to be getting onto the green from farther out because the greens are so large. So just guys to look at are guys that have a really good approach shot. Action Network does a really good job of breaking down which golfers that is. Morikawa is one of them. But excuse me. You can check out Action Network for best. It's called strokes gained. It basically just means who's shooting the best on their approach shot. PGAtour.com actually has a lot of good stats. And so, Morikawa is second on tour in strokes gained approach to the green. All right. And then because this is our last episode for a while, we thought we'd leave you with a little more, couple honorable mentions of who else we like. So just going to rattle these off. The other golfers I'm looking at to bet this week. Again, this is just get in and then sell over the weekend. Patrick Cantlay, 16-1. Even though he plays slow as molasses, he always finds himself in one of the
last groupings of the top leaderboard. 3 top 10s in his last 5 tournaments. Again,
Wow.
like in the recent track record. Jason Day, 50-1. I'm loving the resurgence that he's having. He won the Byron Nelson Classic a few weeks ago. He is 10th in strokes gained and 12th in total driving. And then last but not least, your boy as well, Sahith Theegala, 120-1 to win the U.S. Open. If he wins it, it would be his first tournament win, on tour. But why not make it a major? He finished 9th at the Masters, and then to your point about greens being huge, you got to have a good putter to win this thing. He ranks 23rd on tour in putting. So those are the quick hitters.
Love it. Love Theegala, also a California kid. If you grew up in Los Angeles or Orange County or even San Diego for Xander, like I'm sure you've played this golf course a ton. So advantage to those kids. Don't really care about the home field advantage, like being able to sleep at home. Like there's probably something there, but to me, like just growing up in this golf course is more of an advantage than being able to sleep like at your house in Malibu. So, on that note, Max Homa, LA kid, both him and Morikawa from Los Angeles, both went to Berkeley. Homa is 31-1 odds. His odds continue to get lower. I feel like every time I check the odds board, he's inching lower. He used to be like 100-1 range, then he was 70-1 range, then he was 50-1. Now he's gained down to 31-1. So I'm sure he's played this course a ton. Max Homa 31-1. And then lastly, I must be missing something here. Like I tried to do some Googling. I'm like, why Justin Thomas is 50-1? It seems like he changed up his irons. He made like some switches with the irons that he's using, like from TaylorMade set A to TaylorMade set B. So that's the only answer I can come up with from why Justin Thomas, who's like to me a top 5 golfer, is odds of 50-1. But to me, there's just value there. Throw a couple bucks on it and flip him if he has a nice Thursday, Friday.
Yeah. My guess is that his play just does not suit this course would be my other guess. By the way, Colin Morikawa hurt himself, had to withdraw from the Memorial because he hurt his back trying to pick something up, which I've never related. As I get older, and my birthday was a couple days ago. I've never related to anything else besides more than that, bending over to pick something up and then having your back just light up on him. He said.
That's happened to me. Been there. Happened about a year ago to me.
Yeah. So yeah, it's gonna be a great weekend on PropSwap. It'll be a great Father's Day. I'm sure that will get mentioned 100 times on Sunday for whoever does win it. So enjoy the golf. Have a great Father's Day. Have a great summer. Like I said, it's not goodbye. It's see you later, and we'll be back just in time for football season. Luke, any closing words before we head out?
No, it's been an awesome fall. Glad that all those long shots have been successful. That's literally why we built this website. Thousands of people have cashed in on all those teams, so we're happy about it and looking forward to the next one.
Yep. So yeah, can't wait to see what the next long shot's going to bring, and more championships, more swaps, and yeah, looking forward to it. So everyone, have a great summer, and we will talk to you in August.